This program has been made possible by the Citizens for Nonpartisan Civic Engagement, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces Channel Media Network, streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
When you partner with Mesilla Valley Transportation, you can count on a group of hardworking professionals that make sure your freight is secure, handled with care, and delivered on time. We have proudly been moving America's cargo since 1982, starting with local businesses to now transporting for Fortune 500 companies. We invest in the industry's most advanced technology when it comes to dispatching, logistics, and safety. You can trust that our customers are our #1 priority. Every day we drive our company to be the best, and that's why we drive for you.
Sorry for that. Okay, so welcome to our New Mexico Election 2020 Candidates Forum wrap-up. Today we're going to be sitting down and having a conversation with all our commentators that participated, and to get, you know, the feedback and highlight a couple of clips that took place during this 12-part series, really. It's been an interesting and fun few weeks, you know, bringing the candidates in, allowing the viewers to have an opportunity to ask questions, and having the candidates participate with us here at the Las Cruces channel. Due to the pandemic, this is what we had to do. We had to bring in our masks. We had to sanitize the place. We sat there and got a Safe Sets International COVID-19 certification. And we hadn't had any incidents, and everyone's been pretty safe and not getting sick. I do want to sit there and say that we had two of our commentators, Olga Nunez, City Councilor from Sunland Park. She's not here with us today. She wanted to be. And also Mario Jimenez, that works with Common Cause. He wanted to be here also with us today. I want to just sit there and take this opportunity to talk with and introduce the candidates one more time, and talk about the pandemic and what impact it had on all of us this election cycle. And I'd like to go ahead and start with Marcy.
Yes, to clarify, I'm not a candidate. We are not running.
Yeah, you're not a candidate. Our commentator.
Despite the rumors on Facebook, no, I am not actually running for anything. No, my name is Marcy Dickerson, and I own the Game 1 and Game 2 in Las Cruces, New Mexico. I had 6 jobs before COVID started. Now I'm down to 2, so I am vastly underemployed at the moment. But I think one of the big things that COVID really did for us as far as elections go, and, you know, what role does government have in your life? Well, how do elections matter? Because many of us have always thought that elections, really doesn't matter. Who's the governor? How's it going to affect us? Da-da-da. And I think definitely in 2020, we have learned that elections have consequences. And we've also learned that who we cast our vote for really does matter. Because before 2020, not one of us would have ever thought that one person in the state would have the power to shut us down, to shut our businesses down, to, you know, send hundreds of thousands of people into unemployment, to bankrupt businesses and that. And now we know that is a very real statement. So I really think what's important is, you know, we've had the opportunity to talk to candidates, look at our candidates, you know, examine these candidates and what they stand for, and that these people affect our lives. And that's a really big deal. These people have an effect on our everyday lives. And I think that's really important. And that's what we've seen through COVID with this election cycle that I think is different than we've seen every other election cycle.
Champ, what was your take? Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Austin Trout. Also known as Trout, also known as. My take on COVID. My take on COVID is it sucks. It sucks living through this. This is like the trash times. Shout out to everybody that's been affected in one way or another, and shout out to everybody that's lost their lives or lost someone due to it. With that said, it's made us have to switch our whole game around. You know, for me, boxing was pretty non-existent. I couldn't even train for plenty of the months, so I had to figure out how I could be more essential, more of service to humanity. And that's kind of what's done for me, and I feel like it's been a blessing because I've really, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm still trying to fight, but I'm changing my gears to be towards more of a serving and more of a service. And with that said, to these politicians that we've been able to interview, interrogate, however you want to say it, I feel like they should have their whole being as far as being a servant. The people are looking for leaders right now. The people are looking for answers, for someone who has the answers. And this was a good time for the candidates to be able to tell us what they're going to do to help the people out. And if they portrayed that message, great. If they didn't, then you know what to do. So this whole COVID has really changed all of our mindset, and I think that's going to be the biggest blessing moving forward.
All right. Shirley.
Thank you. And once a candidate, always a candidate. So even though I'm not a candidate right now, I have been. I'm Shirley Baca, former state rep, former PRC commissioner, and candidate of many things. So thank you. And as far as the discussion about COVID, I think everybody deals with what they have to deal with in their own personal life, whether you have children, whether you don't, whether you have seniors or whatever. We all deal with it different. I, for one, have been able to see the scientific aspect of it, the healthcare aspect of it, and even though I don't like it and I don't agree with it, I know that until we actually follow the scientists, the science, wearing masks, social distancing, not gathering in groups of more than 5, although here we are today in groups of more than 5. No, it's been lowered to 5. And, I think that we can say the economy is ruined. But if you're dead, then what good does an economy do? And we can say that one person made a decision, but no, one person didn't make a decision. There was a legislature, there is a legislature in New Mexico of 112 people, 70 House members and 42 senators that actually vote and have given in the past the authority to the governor, whoever it may be, to make decisions when emergency comes and when there's times that a decision has to be made without calling a special session, without other people having things to do. And I'm thinking that now that we already have over 230,000 deaths, 230,000 deaths in the United States, New Mexico is peaking. Doña Ana County had 205 infected yesterday alone. We have tripled in 1 month what our positive rate is. And maybe some of you say, well, it's not that bad. I don't have a family member or I don't know anybody that's died. I've known a couple of people, not very close people, but I've known of people that died, and every life counts. So if one person dies, don't 2 people die, it's something. And I don't want to see that happen. And as soon as we mind the scientists and we do what we're supposed to do, businesses will open up, kids will get to go back to school, people will get to go to retail and restaurants, etc. But it doesn't happen without responsibility. And responsibility starts with us, each and every one of us.
Yeah. All right, Kelly.
Kelly O'Connell, a local attorney. I did talk radio in town for 6 years on KOBE AM 1450 and do a little writing at Canada Free Press. And actually today's article was Sacred Vermin, the individuals who are not getting prosecuted because they're too important in the country, and we need to do something about that. But anyway, I was also the piano player at Encanto for a year. But I found a video last night that I would tell anybody to go look up. It was amazing. The doctor is in, Scott Atlas, and the efficacy, or the efficacy, which means, of course, the efficiency of lockdowns, social distancing, and closings. And what this guy said in this interview, which is about 50 minutes, is he said we started off with the wrong numbers, that COVID was never as bad as we thought, so we've made all our decisions off these bad numbers. And he said the death rate was something like 1/3 of 1%. But what they pointed out was that twice as many people have died from, not from COVID, but from being losing their job, being part of a locked in. And they said, this guy said, there are a lot of kids that are coming into emergency rooms who've been beaten up, broken bones, that type of thing. The parents are home. There's conflict with the kids. They can't go to school, and the parents end up taking out their frustration on the kids. So, according to this guy, 400,000 or 500,000 people have died from COVID because we've mishandled it. And I think that we need to rethink what's going on. We need to reprioritize, and there can't be just one factor. Everybody has to be taken into account, and we've got to make the best of our lives, and that doesn't mean hiding in a closet or a basement trying to avoid COVID.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that when we were doing, and I got involved, like I asked you, Austin, I sat there and I said, would you be a moderator for one of our candidate forums that we would do probably in one of our community centers or at a park because of COVID? And then this opportunity came. And so this opportunity still allowed us to engage with the folks out there through social media. There's somebody else I'd like to really introduce to you, and that is Desiree Hall, our co-producer and our social media moderator. So introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work you're doing behind the scenes.
Okay, so my name is Desiree Sunset Hall. I graduated in MSU Water Wastewater. I majored in chemistry and microbiology. I am a local DJ. I am the general manager at Palacio Bar. So needless to say, all the fun stuff I like to do during COVID. Watching these candidate forums from behind the scenes, I get to see what everybody out here can't see. And it was all mostly positive for the most part. And I just want to say that the community interaction for what we're trying to do here was absolutely outstanding. And I think the message that we're trying to get out was sent. And I do believe that the input that we provided for them through the candidate forums was paramount for their vote.
Well, so, as the viewers out there asking questions, were we getting lots of questions? I mean, I've gone back to see them, but like, which forums did you see the most comments come from?
In all honesty, the first couple forums, there were people watching. There wasn't too much interaction. It was more towards the end, and I don't like to frame it up like that, but the bigger candidates, the more popular candidates, maybe the ones with the biggest districts. So I would say, Steinborn and Smalls, that was a huge one with the most comments and the most viewers, which it should be. I mean, they represent really big districts, and there's a lot at stake, for people to vote who's going to be doing what or running what, But all of them were good. All of them were good, and even if we only had one question, that's still the most important question, I think.
Was it fun?
I had a blast. Yes. Had a great time. I like it better back there.
So, you know, one of the things, like we're saying, this is really, we're doing this so that the viewers and the people in our community, our friends, our family, our neighbors, have an opportunity to ask questions of the candidates. So I'm asking and encouraging, if you're watching right now, feel free to send. Desiree is still moderating today. But I'd also like to, you know, the issue with the pandemic is that, you know, Shirley, you mentioned it, like, so right now we're not supposed to gather with people more than 5. But I do feel like we went as far and beyond to make everybody safe here. None of the candidates that said that they were going to come didn't show up. And so with the partitions between us, you know, all of us walking in, and we may not be wearing masks right now, but when we walked in and we sit down, you know, we had our masks on. But I also wanted to roll a clip with Mr. Senator Cervantes, and if you know, just the words that he said during one of the forums. If we can roll that clip.
I came into the studio today here, everyone was wearing a mask, including Mr. Roberts and me as well. We're doing things smartly in this room to try and keep one another safe.
So, I mean, that's something that I really was very proud of for all of us that we're doing this, because wearing the masks and people's safety was a big concern for all the candidates that came in. They asked us questions in regards to how safe the place is. But I just want to throw this out there to you guys. Did you guys feel like anybody was, the candidates themselves, when they were here with us, do you feel they were using COVID as an excuse to maybe not answer questions or to engage in a way that, Kelly, you're shaking your head.
Well, I mean, I was thinking of Joanne Ferrari, who I think when we had discussed it later, people thought she wasn't prepared. And she had the mask on, and it kind of got in the way of understanding her. Although, you know, you could understand, but it just felt like rope-a-dope.
Yeah.
It felt like she was on one topic that she knew about before she got the invite. And it was appropriations or whatever, how to get money from the government. And I was thinking the whole time, we've got a new budget, so why don't we talk about that instead of how to get money?
Yeah.
Sure. On the same question, because I was here, and I think you and I were the two moderators that day. I also observed that, yes, she might have had some issue. I think she was a little slow to respond. I think other candidates are slow to respond. I think unless you've been on the hot seat and you're asked a question and you're prepared to respond, it takes a while to think and answer it. But what I observed is that Isabel Solis came in with this notebook and had this letter in a plastic page, and when they were asked to ask your opponent a question, she came out with this page and she started just rambling on the blah, 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 blah.
Shirley has a notebook.
About what?
Shirley has a notebook.
And I bring a notebook every single
Shirley brought a
time.
notebook.
And she started rambling on this letter.
Is that Isabel's notebook?
And so I thought, well, what's up with that? Because number one, I was told that it was mentioned that they were going to be able to ask each other questions. I was told that, and I guess they knew about it. Certainly Isabel knew. So somebody had given Isabel the heads up. Joanne was not prepared. She did not know. She was not prepared with a question. And Isabel rambled something on that probably nobody understood, because I certainly didn't understand it.
I understood it.
Well, blah, 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 blah. You do understand that pretty good. And so anyway, I think that, yes, she didn't respond as quickly. Yes, I think she had issues and concerns about COVID, and I think we should, and people that don't, well, let it fall where it falls. And yes, I think that there could have been a pre-warning to Isabel, because she certainly came in knowing that she was going to be allowed to ask a question. She had this letter that had been sent by somebody, and she rambled it on.
But I mean, going on what you're saying, I mean, in a real big way, Shirley, Joanne, Representative Ferrari was here because when I called you, it sounded like she didn't want to be here. And I told you, I think we just lost Ferrari. And you sat there, and I believe you made a phone call to her. I mean, that was like one of the only times that we had to deal with somebody almost backing out. And it was at the last hour, and I just wasn't going to sit there and try to make
Some
a big
people
deal
are
about it,
very
but-
concerned about it.
Yeah,
Some
I
people
mean-
don't wear masks.
Yeah, and I think
Some of us do.
Yeah, and that's something that I agree with you. The whole fact about notebooks and Isabel having being prepared, or Ferrari. I just felt that that in that situation, in that one forum, I did feel like the candidate, Representative Ferrari, was using the COVID. And instead of like being proactive and trying to answer these questions, like Senator Souls coming in to look at the studio, I understand that and respect that. But at 1 hour before it, and they're trying to back out, and then you have to call, I just thought the reason Joanne Ferrari was here was because of you.
Well, there was others.
Marcy, go ahead.
I think we might have to put our R and our D up. I'm just saying. We got R, we got D. I'm not sure what's going on over there. But I mean, I think, to answer, in my opinion, to answer your question about people being scared of COVID or people not wanting to participate in debates because of COVID, because of what we're dealing with. Okay, this isn't week 2 or 3.
No.
We're on month 7. You know what? You are going to be an elected official for any point up to 2 to 4 years, depending on what seat you're running for. So to stand here and tell the voters, especially now you have such limited access to it, to tell the voters and to tell the other people and the commentators that I don't think I want to talk to you because I'm so scared because I'm going in a room with 6 people. I'm not belittling the science, but the point is you're going to be elected and you're going to be responsible for many more days, hopefully after COVID is over. If COVID lasts for as long as any of these people are going to be elected for, and we're still in shutdown 2 years from now, there won't be a state to mess with. It won't matter. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think a lot of people came in and they were very, COVID this. I do think Ferrari, I watched that, because I couldn't participate because, yes, I'm one of Isabella's supporters. But, I watched it. I think she was vastly underprepared. You know what? Be prepared. And especially when an incumbent is unprepared, I think that's a scary thing because you're the one up there, you're voting for it, you're doing it. I'll say we had a non-incumbent that came in and said they didn't know what capital outlay was about. Okay, you know what? I mean, that one tends to be more on my side than other sides, but I was like, no, you have to know. If you're going to run for office, you have to research. You have to know. If you are an incumbent, there is no way not to know. There's no way not to be able to be prepared to answer the questions to it. I will say Bill Souls, he did a good job. He answered questions. He did well. I will say some of our other candidates on both sides, they did a good job. They were prepared. Skaggs and Steinborn, I felt, went toe to toe. Yeah. They had different, responses, different aspects that came from different sides, but I felt that both of them were prepared. But I definitely think that if you're going to enter public service, the last thing you can do after you put your yard sign up is go hide because you're like, I'm scared of COVID in a very small area. Yeah. Like I get we're not going to have 400, 500 people, massive debates and massive auditoriums for them to see, but they should be able to show up and be prepared. And when they're not prepared, certainly not nail it, not whine about COVID and not call us and be mad about it.
Yeah. I want to go ahead and we're on that, and Kelly, I see you over there, and I'll get to you. But because we're talking about being prepared, if we can share clip number 3, and this is, I got clips of folks that I just wanted to share because I think some of the things that we saw demonstrated that. And this is what's the beauty of having it captured on television or on video, live. We roll clip number 3, please.
Jeff, are you willing to apologize?
No.
Oh, well, just go with it.
For turning a campaign into something nasty.
I would say I wouldn't characterize it that way, and I know it's painful, But, you know, I will say, and I'm going to answer your question maybe with my question, which is I was born and raised in this community. And I realized you just moved here 2 years ago. The first, or whenever you moved here, but you got registered in 2018 in Doña County, as I understand it. The first time you voted in this county was when you voted for yourself. Is the audio off?
All right, no worries. That one will come up. We'll explain that one. You'll get another.
Can you get to the differences that you hear, the disinformation specifically?
Just everything that the commissioner said.
You know, we watch something like that, you know, and I think she was a sponsor of a bill that we were discussing. It was a question that you had raised, Shirley. And when she was trying to explain that moment about the bill and abortion bill. I would see you guys getting frustrated because you wanted to answer the question. And you did. You pressed her. What were the things that was misinformation and that and she couldn't do it?
We all have our own political opinions, which is one reason we're invited on here. Some people are more Democrat, some people are more Republican. But she had said that there was a mischaracterization by Isabel, and I was curious. I wanted to give her the chance to, you know, defend herself or defend her ideas, inform people. So what was the mischaracterization that Isabel said about this abortion bill? And Ms. Ferrari said everything.
That the commissioner said.
Yeah. So I mean, number one, it's so vague. It's kind of confusing, but also it means to me that you don't even know what you're talking about at the moment. You know, I'm sure she knows her own bill, but there was so much passion and enthusiasm by Isabel to talk about this, and Ferrari was just saying she's a liar, and that I think that was off-putting.
Yeah, you know. So, and you're right, Marcy, and you know, all of us can sit there and see that when we're asking these candidates that are going to represent us, it's an important position that they hold. They hold tremendous power. And so we want to, I think Olga said it, we want public servants, people that understand that we are the ones that put you in this position through our votes, and yes, through your campaigning and your likability, but you really do need to go up to Santa Fe and represent us and know this is a representative, a sitting representative, and when they can't sit there and back that up.
You know, Isabel said one thing that kind of blew me away, because I'm always thinking about it when I'm listening to politicians, but I don't hear people talking about it. You shouldn't go to represent people with your own pet projects, and you shouldn't just have something that's off the kind of path. You should be working on safety, employment, all of the basic things, keeping businesses open, making the schools better, stuff that everybody can agree with. You shouldn't go with a pet project to bring in something that's extremely divisive.
Well, it's not divisive for her to have carried the bill and passed the bill to set up an early education department and set it up with some permanent funds that will keep it in perpetuity, and that actual department is going to be, it will be starting and will be kept in perpetuity through that. She knew that.
They were talking about abortion.
And on the abortion bill, it was Isabel said.
Not early education.
Oh, well, no, but Isabel said abortions are conducted up to the minute of birth.
Yes.
And then she said, you don't know what you're talking about. However, she should have said these are what it is and what it isn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that becomes a philosophical, because she wasn't there representing her own good.
I think we're getting back to the issue. Like what you're saying is, and what I'm feeling just coming from you right now is, we don't need to defend our elected officials.
No, but he's saying that she did not represent the people.
No,
but Isabel said
no. He's
that.
just saying
it's what Isabel said.
I think we need a wide camera angle.
Okay,
all right,
go.
go ahead,
I think we need a wide camera angle on all of this, because that's going to be a lot more fun. So, I mean, I think a piece of this, and certainly what Kelly is saying, not necessarily, I don't think it's about the actual little semantics of what you're believing and what this bill is about. It's about the fact and I'm going to argue with Shirley for just a second in her opening statement. In her opening statement, she said that COVID, please correct me if I'm wrong, that COVID was not, all of the COVID response wasn't done by one person. It was done by a legislative session. Now, the legislators have not been brought in. They got to be brought in for a very little thing. There was no public access. They went like this, pop, 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 get out. Yes, at some point in the future, the legislators voted the power to the governor because they were thinking of a terrorist act. I have talked to many legislatures, and not one of them have ever said to me, yes, Marcy, we thought that we would be in absolute chaos for 7 months and no one would ask us anything. What I'm saying is we're sending a legislature, whether it's a newly elected legislature, whether it's incumbents, we're sending this group to Santa Fe. And this group, for the first time in a long time, we'll say it that. I know Ms. Shirley said they had shut down the government before in one of our previous debates. But in the first time in a long time, these people are going to have to go up and they're going to have to decide, are we going to stand up to the governor or are we just going to go about business as normal? And I think that's the piece for all of us when we talk about these candidates that are showing up, especially our incumbents. And don't get me wrong, there's not many incumbents I'm a fan of. I'll say that right now. You knew that when you brought me in. You know, these incumbents show up and they cannot speak to what they support, how they support it, what their bills are, what they stood for. Because what we as the community want is we want somebody to go up there, swords drawn, defend us, talk about us. We are the forgotten southern New Mexico. We've talked about your colonias. Like, oh my goodness, if you asked anybody in Taos where was a colonia, are they even going to be able to tell us? No. They're not. And that's what we're looking for down here. And that's what we're looking for with these candidates. It's not necessarily, do you believe red chili or green chili is correct? It is, can you stand up and can you fight for what we believe?
And that question did come
that's
up.
What we're missing. That's what we're missing. And there weren't many candidates that I would say that could do that.
Yeah, and I learned a lot more from you on that bill, that one particular bill that Ferrari sponsored. And for her not to sit here and defend that bill with, instead of just going, you know, saying everything.
If it's your bill, you should defend it specifically.
I want to get on to, you know, some other.
Let me respond, because we can't say they're going to go with swords drawn to represent us, because who is the us? One of the common, I put down all the common themes of all of the challengers and the common themes of the incumbents, and one of the common themes was to protect traditional New Mexico values and to protect family values. Well, who is us? Obviously, the us are the peoples that voted to put them there to begin with. And just because you didn't vote to put them there and you don't agree how they're voting doesn't mean they're not defending us. They might be defending us and my family values and my New Mexico traditional values, and heaven knows I come from the original colonizers, so I have traditional New Mexico values. And so, you know, who is the us? It's all relative and it all depends. And if it's us, those of us that have put them there feel like they're representing us. And I don't believe in coming with swords drawn, because swords drawn is not the way to get things done.
Austin.
That's how the country was built. They kind of, they didn't say please, no, they rioted. So, you know, for those that be like, oh, how dare they riot? Like, have you ever heard of the Tea Party? That's kind of how this game started. So what she was saying about the legislators that gave the power to the governor, if you didn't like that, you got to get rid of that legislation. Yeah. Understand. You don't like what the governor did, you got to get rid of the governor when it's time to vote. Yeah. And if you don't like that the legislation gave up their power, then find somebody that will hold on to that power come hell or high water. I don't know. You know, it's all about circumstance. This was the worst pandemic that, of course, not just myself, but my mother and my grandfather have ever lived through. And panic was in the air. So I don't judge people on what they did during a panic, but once it settled a little bit and you kind of get to look and see when the dust clears on what you do, you got to make the adjustments after that. So that's what we're looking at. And it's just right around election time. So if you didn't like how they handled this pandemic initially or months later, do something about it. Here's your chance.
I want to go ahead and share another clip You know, just because I don't feel we're picking on priority. I'm picking on unprepared candidates. So if I could go ahead and get clip number 5. Clip number 5. This was an interesting, you know, when you're talking with candidates, you really hope that they have done their research and talked with the people and talked with folks that know the issues of their district. And these were the things that just really took me away. But go ahead if we can roll clip number 5. Where do you guys stand on supporting the Colonias Initiative and the Colonias Infrastructure Trust Fund? And Kimberly.
I have not studied that. I'm going to be honest.
All right. You know, that's something that I was, you know, I was taken back. You're running for an office, you're trying to get a job, and you're not prepared. You couldn't answer the question. You were not aware of it. And that was something that I think, Marcy, you just brought up right now, is yeah, people in Taos wouldn't know that. But the district in which you're running, I would assume that you would know something about that. And I think when I was asking these questions, in the back of my head, I was assuming that they knew what.
Well, and so for the record, I am not picking on the Democrats. There was several Republican candidates as well that were not prepared, that could not answer the questions of what is, and you know, Olga asked on one of the debates that I was with her on, what is the most important capital outlay thing for you? You know, there were questions like, what is the, you know, Colonias Fund, and what is the Colonias Fund done? You know, there were several on both sides. I mean, this isn't, you know, Republican and the Democrats didn't do it. There was a lot of candidates in and of themselves on both sides of the parties that we interviewed in that, whether I was present or I watched it, that they were just not ready. And I'm like, baby, who prepped you for this debate? Where's your political, you know, liaison? Where's your advisor? How do you not know what's going on in your community? And I think that is something where, if you will, yes, this year's a little different because we have more people participating than ever participated. The number of candidates we have running is more than we've ever had before. The number of voter turnout, which none of us knew that when the candidates signed up, but our voter turnout is insane. And we'll see how that shakes out at the end. But, you know, if you're going to go fight for an elected position, and I very much agree with Olga, this is about servitude. This is about becoming I call it a voice. This is about becoming a voice for the community that you represent. Because that's our illusion, right? That we elect them and they go up and they speak like they want us to. And you're right, Shirley, who's the us? Because that's a very different argument. But, you know, I think they need to be, you know, people need to be prepared. They need to know about it. They need to be able to advocate and fight and advocate intelligently about what is going on.
Kelly.
All right, so
Kelly's
this whole thing brings up the experience with Nathan Small, which I felt like he and I were kind of going back and forth. He was frustrated, I was frustrated. I felt like when I asked him a question or Austin asked him a question, his answer was, well, I worked on this bill, or let me tell you about this other bill. And I think because of Trump, and I know some people have strong feelings
You're not
about
supposed
Trump.
to say that name. I was told. That's what I was told.
Because of Trump, we have a new standard of being down to earth and being open, whether you agree or not. The issue is be down to earth so people can relate to you. And I know, you know, the media's gone after him for 3 or 4 years, but I think it gives a different expectation because, you know, I think Nathan, he's a smart guy, he's a likable guy. But if you hear where he was coming from, it sounded political as opposed to human.
Yeah, there was like, the first, like, Senator Souls and, what's his name, Senator Cervantes. When I was watching those guys, they had a way of answering the question. I mean, and people call it polished. But they could answer the question.
They weren't offended.
Yeah.
Cervantes was not offended to be pushed.
Yeah.
He liked it.
And there was like moments where you did, like, I did see it with a couple other candidates, in particular with Representative Small. But it felt like he was dancing around a lot of questions.
But what question did he answer directly?
I
said, will you admit, I said to him, will you admit there's hundreds of empty business property in this community? Could you please at least, just please
acknowledge that?
Yeah, just that one thing. And he said, well, let me tell you about the history of empty property or whatever. And it's like, no,
That's what I found a lot of the
Champ.
candidates that were in office, you know, when it came to a question of moving forward, what are you going to do? They always wanted to refer what they did. You know, well, I voted on this and I tried to keep this going, so I'm going to, moving forward, it's like, yeah, but that was in another world. Because pre-COVID, our world was very much different.
Very true.
So what are you going to do forward? Because we're in a new world right now, and a lot of them didn't have an answer. Which
That's
is
leadership, right?
Very frustrating and unfortunate. Because again, I don't think these candidates thought that it was going to be such a big turnout. People are going to be paying so much attention. I feel like some of these candidates feel like they were just going to go off because who they know, who they knew, their ties and whatnot. You know, they had enough money to campaign or campaign in the way that I don't feel is necessary to the public, but you know, to whoever endorses them or whatever. I don't think they were ready for doing that work that we made them do with this forum.
Yeah.
And this forum was no one had a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
So when we asked them questions, we were like, no, we want to know what you're going to do for us.
Yeah.
Please answer the question. And a lot of times you saw them get not just frustrated, but nervous, like, oh, I don't want to sit here and say I'm going to do anything for anybody, because then you're going to hold me to it. And that's the point of these things. So we did our job as far as trying to hold their feet by the fire.
Yes, I absolutely you're right. We're going to take a break right now, but if you're on social media, by Facebook Live, I encourage you to ask a question or respond with what you thought was good or bad or however you thought about these forums. But we'll be right back in just a moment. Thank you.
When I think of MVT, I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.
Thank you. I'm Arturo Uribe. We're here with our commentators for the wrap-up show, having a lively discussion, just picking out some of the points that were highlights for us. And I would say that we had, some really pretty good highlights. Most of them pretty much behind the scenes or before the show started. So, I mean, things did happen where, the candidates themselves got into it. I do want to sit there and just share this clip that we did in being prepared. I don't want to hammer that. I want to get on, but I did bring this clip with Don Ladd. I believe it was clip number 4.
Got it.
And in this one, the same thing. There's, the colonias are very important to me, but I think the spaceport was something that we, as the voters in Doña Ana, 15, almost 20 years ago, voted to go ahead and tax ourselves here in Doña Ana, 0.25%, on top of the tax that we as New Mexicans were already paying for our Governor Richardson, who cut a deal with Sir Richard Branson to build this spaceport that was going to be taking people into space. And so my concern was what's going to happen when that money sunsets. Are we still going to support it with our Doña Ana taxpayers' dollars? But here's one of the questions that we asked Don Ladd. If we could roll the clip, please. Would you support us continuing to give money to the spaceport? Don.
To the spaceport? I'm not really informed on all of the spaceport issues.
So again, right there, it's like you're running. We have people and candidates that want to represent us, and I just feel that it's disappointing that they don't know some of these
I really have to talk about that.
Go ahead.
So I was a commentator on that debate, and the reason that Don Ladd hesitated that way was not because she wasn't prepared about spaceport. She was talking about Tesla and Elon Musk coming to town. You brought up spaceport. What she was talking about, Elon Musk wasn't going to spaceport. They were talking about Tesla moving into Sunland Park to create a battery manufacturing area. That's what she was talking about. She was talking about Elon Musk flying over New Mexico, which meant that they looked at Sunland Park to become a Tesla battery manufacturing plant. And because the state of New Mexico had screwed it up so bad, Elon Musk left. And he was like, no, thank you. So when you asked her, I have to defend her on this. I don't really have a lot to do with Don Ladd and Lotta until the fight after, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I was trying to get your attention at that time when I was commenting, when I was a commentator, because I was like, baby, she's not talking about spaceport. Elon Musk, although yes, he's SpaceX, it had nothing to do with that point of the discussion. She was talking about Tesla and Tesla coming to Sunland Park. That's why in that commentary, she seems a little taken aback because she wasn't talking about spaceport.
And I don't know. My point is, and what I saw in there, and we were talking about, yes, but that's not impacting us here in that district. Elon Musk flying over and having Richard Branson be here and do that.
That's what I'm saying. She was talking about Tesla coming to Sunland Park.
But he didn't. And so the fact is that, yeah, she may have been talking about Elon Musk. And what struck the question is we still are dealing with a Richard Branson. How are we going to be dealing, and what money and tax money and our dollars are we going to give billionaires like Elon Musk and Richard Branson to bring their businesses here? So I don't have a problem with Elon Musk not bringing Tesla here, because I think there are issues, and I think what Santa Teresa and what Jerry Pacheco and those guys are doing up there is great. And if we don't bring in Elon Musk, I still want to see us bring people in, fly them out into space.
Oh, I'm with you, but there's two separate ordeals. If we're looking at spaceport going up and down, that's great. But when you guys are talking about, we're talking about advocating
taxpayer dollars.
We're talking about advocating for the colonias and that type of thing, and that's a little different. Yes, there's going to be humans going up and down that are going to have some type of economic, impact to us when it happens.
But my point, Marcy, is when you ask somebody about a job that they're trying to get, and whether she was talking about Elon Musk, but when she should have known about the spaceport. That's just how
I agree. The same way, there's others that should know about
it. Go ahead,
The issue that came up during one of the debates was whether someone had lied about somebody else, and that person had a very strong reaction, and they responded. It was about racism, and she said, basically my whole family's Nigerian. And then the person who had put out the flyer was asked to apologize, and it was amazing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, and that one, we do have that clip.
Where's that clip?
If we can go ahead, I do want to just sit there and just, there was some pretty hot button moments that we got to participate. I got to see them all.
Yeah.
And so, when Dawn was here, Marcy, you were
let's
here.
talk about the back of curtain moments.
So I mean, there was a moment where we're sitting here talking with the commentators, and as they go out to the back and Mike, they're in the back, and for the most part, most of the candidates that were back there, they were very respectful to each other. On this one, we didn't. I wish we would have turned the camera in there, and we're learning because it was pretty. What was your take?
My take was it was like Jerry Springer backstage.
What was it? What happened? Tell the story.
So it was
Tell the story.
Don Ladd and Lotta. What's Lotta's first name? Ray Lotta. So they had been pleasant to each other during the debate. Toward the end of the debate, when he does the "you can ask him a question" thing, Don Ladd, and really I had no dog in this fight. I didn't care. And so Dawn asks him, and she's like, well, you've had lots of money given to you by Planned Parenthood. Do your Catholic voters know that? And he's like, I have not. And he got all defensive. He's like, I have not had any money given to me by Planned Parenthood. And he was all defensive. And she's like, yes, you have. I have the paperwork in the car. And, she's like this little bitty thing, right? She weighs like a buck, itty bitty, tiny, like 89-pound little human,
Like
and it's not like
Gator Ginsburg.
Fierce.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like he was fighting with me. And so they get done. He's like, well, no, I didn't. She's like, yeah, I did. I got it in the car. He's like, no, I didn't. So then they go to commentators. So Olga and I are talking. These two get up, and next thing you know, there is screaming and yelling from the back of the house. And I guess there was this huge to-do. She produced the paperwork, which I saw, that said, yes, you had received all this money from Planned Parenthood. Yes, like most of the other Democratic candidates in the state. Generalization, sorry. But, yes, you had received this. And I guess he got in her face, was screaming and cussing at her. Arturo had to take her out. I was so sad I sat there because I was still mic'd up. That would have been such a champ. We needed to do that.
Hey, I would have definitely defended the.
We needed to do that night. You could have, right or wrong. Like, here is this aggressive male picking on. I mean, it's not like it's an aggressive male picking on me. Okay, I'm a pretty big girl, and I can probably handle myself because I've worked in bars my whole life. But here was this aggressive male picking on this tiny little woman, and she was in the back, and she was mortified. So when we finally got up, you kicked him out. Like,
I didn't kick him out. I went back there and got in the middle, and I sat there and I had to ask him to come outside and calm him down.
But you know what? Let's talk about it this way. We talked about candidates being prepared. We talked about people going to Santa Fe and advocating for us. Seriously,
that's a red flag.
You have a candidate.
It's a red flag.
That cannot handle a discussion about where your funding came from in the back next to the cheese log, which was very good, by the way, next to the delicious cheese log, having screaming and cussing at this woman in her face, having a fit. What kind of candidate are you? And I'm not judging him or anything. It's just like, what kind of candidate are you? You go to Santa Fe.
Republican, Democrat doesn't matter. You have to be able to hold your temper, because I'm sure there's plenty more hot seats that you'll be in as an elected official. And just I'm all about protecting women and children. I think that's one of God's commandments for as a man. Protect the women and children.
I'm glad you said that. Hey, wait, let me give you one more second. So I would just like to say that I'm really glad Austin Trout said that, because if Austin Trout got in fights with everybody that might disagree with him, that would be really blank. So thank you for protecting women and children. But but it's you have to, you have to be able to handle it. But yes, that was one of those. I so wanted the Jerry Springer back of house camera.
Yeah.
Because that would have been a good time.
And talking about men and women and the candidates and how they respect one another. If we can roll the clip number 3 with Senator Steinborn. And this clip here, it was pretty amazing. And throughout the the time that they were here with us, they were very pleasant. They were very nice. But there was a moment there where Miss Skaggs asks and shares with.
She out of the blue.
Yeah, comes in, says, hey, I was very respectful. I didn't run a dirty campaign against you, and then you started putting out these flyers,
Racism.
And basically calling me a racist. I had actually that week or the week before had seen some flyers where they had some of the candidates and people on social media where they had a noose around his particular neck.
I got to interrupt that.
No, but wait, but that was out there. So I mean, when she was mentioning the fact that he was, had gone dirty on her, there's other organizations, PACs, that get involved. The candidates have no control over that. They cannot coordinate with their campaigns. So other people put out adverts for them. That was one that he could have really taken the wind out of her sail and just said, well, what about the flyer you put out? But if we can go ahead and roll the clip with that exchange, please.
Jeff, are you willing to apologize? For turning a campaign into something nasty?
I would say I wouldn't characterize it that way, and I know it's painful, but I will say, and I'm going to answer your question maybe with my question, which is I was born and raised in this community, and I realize you just moved here 2 years ago, the first or whenever you moved here, but you got registered in 2018 in Doña Ana County, as I understand it. The first time you voted in this county was when you voted for yourself. And so in 2018, that's not the first time you voted.
That's untrue.
In Doña Ana County.
That is untrue.
Okay. Or in 2020, excuse me, not 2018. But anyway, but the point is that.
Will you apologize?
No.
I mean, I thought, we're talking about how men treat women, and I thought there was a moment there that I thought Ms. Skaggs was being genuine, and when, politics is dirty. Politics, you got to be tough.
Which is what he said.
Yeah, and that's what he said.
Yes.
But I do still feel he could have said that and offered, some sort of respect.
He basically said
that's
that,
his opponent, though.
Yeah.
But I mean, he basically said that he didn't have to apologize because politics is dirty. He didn't do any fact checking.
Well,
he didn't listen to her.
Well, part of the thing, too, let me interrupt here, because what he could have done is shown the actual flyer, because I saw the flyer, and in the middle of the flyer, there was a picture of her, of Miss Skaggs, in a parade. There was a red truck, and there was a Confederate flag, a huge Confederate flag. And he said, well, I don't think it was him or the PAC, as Arturo mentioned. Sometimes PACs do things like hanging people from a noose, and that looks like anti-Semitic. It had his head, and he's Jewish. And he said that she supported racist symbols. And a person like myself, seeing a person in a parade in a red truck with a huge Confederate flag, would say, that's kind of racist, and especially nowadays, we don't want to see Confederate flags. However, I don't know what the big deal is about him not apologizing when there is a person that lives in the White House that's a misogynist, a sexist, a racist, and that says whatever the hell he wants. And whenever they tell him to apologize, he doubles down and backs off. I'm not saying it's right.
Trump?
I'm not saying, well, somebody said Trump. I wasn't supposed to say the word, but it's been said.
I mean, that was it. The guy in the White House is Trump, so Steinborn is Trump.
If Republicans like Trump and how he behaves, then they're going to love Steinborn because he's reflecting and imitating what their president behaves like. So the reality is, maybe he was another one that didn't come in with his little flyer ready to say, well, what about this?
He was willing to run it, but he didn't bring it with him?
No,
Isn't
I
that
think a
sloppy?
PAC ran it. I think a PAC ran
Are you
it.
talking about the puppets ads?
No, I'm talking about a flyer that Miss Skaggs got very sensitive about.
Oh, that was his flyer, or not, or PAC that they did it for him.
His campaign sent out.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, though? If her family is Nigerian, then she has every right to say, I'm not
They're not
racist.
Nigerian. If you look on her
That's what
Facebook,
she
there's
said.
2 little boys that are a little African American or a little African, they're little black boys, and the rest of everybody I looked at, I'm sorry, you're brown, you're black.
Sure, you're a Democrat. You can't see those things.
How would you know if her family was Nigerian? She said,
Well,
hold on a
then
second.
they're white Nigerians, okay?
No.
There's white people, they're white
All
Nigerians.
right, white Nigerians, new category.
More south.
But I'd like to. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate it. But I also want to give you an opportunity because of.
I'm just interested. Just said they're little black boys.
Is that a bad thing?
No, but the fact is, like,
Let him talk.
We're going to ask us.
Let him talk.
Who's to say that she didn't just adopt these boys? And if she did, then she can't be that racist. I mean, I don't know if those are her
I
blood
don't think the
family.
issue is Skaggs is racist at all. I don't think that was the issue.
I don't know much about it.
Like,
I know she kind of ignored my Mexican friend who tried to talk to her numerous times at a rodeo, but that doesn't mean she's racist.
Well,
it means she doesn't like that guy's face.
that may mean that she just didn't appreciate, your approach.
Yeah.
It wasn't me, though.
No, I'm not saying you.
Yeah, but my buddy.
Everybody appreciates
But
it.
should he have apologized, in your opinion?
And I just feel like when we were talking about, I think you just right now just hit me. They're opponents. I mean, when you go into the boxing ring, you're not there to be friends.
And honestly, if it was a female that had to fight or was going to fight, gloves off.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be in the ring.
So I mean, now when you say it, and I look at you, and with, I if you're going to get into the game of politics, then don't expect apologies.
But what, on the other hand, though, real quick, is that he knows he's going to win. Nobody knows who she is. He's cyclical. Why not apologize if he figures out he's wrong?
I think there's two pieces to this. I think the first thing to look at is, and we're going to talk about Shirley's comment in just a second. The first thing to look at is, where did that ad come from?
Who did it?
Did that ad come from a PAC, which was like,
But he never said he didn't send it. That's what he said.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The first thing is, did it come from a PAC that isn't his PAC? Did he control the PAC? Is it his PAC?
But he said it was okay. That part, you know what I'm saying?
No, I'm with you. If
said,
it came
I
from
won't
you,
apologize for it.
then you should be. Then
But
they
he
should
didn't
run
say
clean
that
candidates.
I'm not going to apologize because it wasn't my ad. I don't know anything about it. He said politics is tough, and I'm not apologizing.
You know what? Then we have 2 points to this.
And I respect
If
your
politics is dirty and politics is tough, then why was the Steinborn clan whining about the ad that Shirley brought up?
Yep.
Okay?
Good
Now,
point.
but I'm going to take this a totally different way. The ad that Shirley brought up, which is an ad put out by people of Las Cruces, and anybody who's living under a rock does not know that's me. Okay, if you are under a rock in Facebook, honey, you know it's me. You know I have something to do with it, so let me explain it. That ad did not, and I know that Lucas Herndon made his bones and he was very excited about posting that. That ad was an ad about marionettes, okay? It was an ad about puppets and marionettes. Now, I did not notice that the way that the marionettes were set up, it looked like Steinborn had a ring around his neck. That was not...
All the candidates had it.
Well, no. The rest of them were hands. His angle was different.
He was
okay?
noosed.
He was not noosed. It is a marionette. They have a thing right here. But the point is, I didn't notice it. The ad comes out. People bring it to my attention because Lucas Herndon had a great time with it, and that's wonderful. Go, baby, go. Hate me all you want. It immediately got taken down, and it got redesigned. It was a marionette. It was not... I was called all kinds of fabulous names. I believe the rabbi now has received text. But the point is, in some of this, there are PACs that their job is to do negative advertising. There are things, we have to remember that all of these ads are done by graphic designers somewhere that are being paid. I don't have an anti-Semitic bone in my body. I mean, I don't hate anybody. I hate you for your actions. I don't hate you for your color, your creed, or whatever you do. If I don't like you, it's because of your actions. But, that is what that ad is. So I want to explain that because there was not a group of humans out there in the world that was after Steinborn because he was Jewish. There was a mistake in graphic design. And I'll stand here and I'll take full responsibility for it. At the time, people didn't know that was me. This came up. I'm publicly saying, yes, I am one of the people behind this. I absolutely am. It's not a secret I'm involved in politics. It's not a secret I'm involved in PACs.
Okay. I want to go ahead and Desiree, Sunset.
So yes, that particular instance was the most reaction we got out of any of these candidate forums we had done. So half the people are on this side going, oh my God, I can't believe he would not apologize to her. How dare him? And then the other half are going, well, good. Look what she did to him. You know, I'm not a very political person. This is literally my third election I've ever voted in. One of them was for my boyfriend when he ran.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, so I'm still learning. I'm learning as I go, you know, and I am a registered felon voter. So I never cared about these things. But what I can tell you is what I've learned. Take the postcard, for example, Shirley. I absolutely understand where you're coming from. Marcy, I can absolutely understand how people can take that and turn it into what it's not. That's just the way it is. If they don't agree with that person, they're going to make it into what they want. Mm-hmm. You know, absolutely. I believe it was a mistake, but I could see at the same time how the other half can go, they did this on purpose and that's not right.
Not to interrupt, just for the record, that ad was up for less than 55 minutes.
I never saw it until
it was up
Shirley
for 55
showed us,
minutes.
but I never saw it online.
Good
I never
minutes.
saw it.
Yeah. That was a very productive 55 minutes.
We're still talking about it.
On the internet, that means forever.
Yeah.
This is the age of memes, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, we can make our own memes. In fact, when I get upset, I make dirty memes about my family. Just to make me feel better. I never send it.
I've seen some.
But this is the age of
about my
memes.
socks
This is the age where sensitivity is just not coddled that much. You have to have thick skin just to be a high school student on social media, okay? So if you're gonna be a politician, in this age of social media and memes, we cannot get hung up about a damn ad, excuse my language. Because the issue is we have a failing economy, we have a freaking pandemic, we have racial tension as like it was in the 60s. There's huge problems that both of those candidates could have overshadowed both of those ads by giving us their plan. What are they going to do to help us get out of this mess? I feel like it's just one strike away from being either a racial war, either a political war, or just a war, civil war of some kind. But there's so many factions, so many divisions that's happening, and I don't feel like our leaders acknowledge that and how they're going to help us fix it.
I want to go back because, you know, we're going a little bit over time. We're doing this for an hour and a half. But one of the things I do kind of want to wrap up and talk and tell you guys, all of you, and Mario and Olga, you guys aren't here, but I really went out of my way to go and invite you. Austin, the way we planned it out, I went and talked with you and sat with you, you know, and really wanted to see you be one of our moderators in a public space like what we were doing downtown in Las Cruces, but doing it in places like Chaparral, Sunland Park, Mesquite, out to Rodi or Rincon. Marcy, I mean, I just sit there and I see the work that you do for the community, and I know that your heart is in a good place. You know, I feel that way. You know, and the work that you do isn't easy, and sometimes putting it out there, it's difficult because you're always going to have people that aren't going to support you. And Kelly, man, I just think the same thing about you. Your radio show, I really appreciated that what you were doing for our community was giving us a voice so that we could participate. And the folks that you were bringing on, I think it was really important, and I really miss that. And Shirley, I've just known you since I started organizing. You were out there. I remember when you ran for Congress and how close you came, and you know, with SWAP, being a member of them, and so I really, know that your heart is in a good place. And with Mario and Olga, the same thing. You know, I've had my relationships with them in working for our community and the work that I've been doing. You know, Desiree, I was supposed to get 2 NMSU students to help do this. So I would have a Democrat and a Republican moderating. So if anybody were to, ask, I'd be able to say, well, we had two point of views. And so, but I think you handled it amazing, and I really appreciate all you guys. But I think what's more important of what we've created and what I really want to see happen is the fact that we all come from different places. And watching you guys, the way you guys get into it, I think is important. That we as a community should be working to come together, you know, to be able to have hard conversations, to respect one another, and to just express how we really see the world. And so I'm very proud of all of you guys, and I'm very proud of what we've created, and I really hope we can grow this. Shirley.
Thank you, and I think that that's the important thing to know is that we do come together. It's easy to say that the incumbents come talking about what they did, because they are proud of their service and they have done a lot of work, and that the other ones, that the challengers don't know about a colonia or a spaceport, and they should be prepared. We all should be prepared for whatever we run for. But the reality, voters, is that whoever's elected will be going into the 2021 legislative session with a $1 billion shortfall. Minimum. Right now, New Mexico will have a $1 billion shortfall. And so what are we going to do? What are going to be the priorities for the budget? Who will be cut? How will it be cut? And how are we going to raise revenues? Is it going to be through agency vacancies? Is it going to be through capital outlay that hasn't been expended from the general fund? One thing that's being talked about that will generate $30 to $40 million a year will be the legalization of marijuana. And that's going to cause its own little ba-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah.
But the reality is incumbents can't really say this is what I'm going to do, because they know what they're going to do is have to balance the budget if they get elected. And the new timers are going to have to be trained and learn the process as they go along to be able to balance the budget. And how are we going to do it? How are we going to provide education?
Surely, I have an idea.
Healthcare.
Heroin is next.
So we can joke, but this is the reality of New Mexico. This is the reality of the COVID. You want to know about COVID? This is a reality of COVID.
Thank you.
All right, Marcy.
I got him a stroke out over here.
Okay.
So, yes. All of that is a very true statement. The reality of COVID is the reality of economics. Like, we have people saying, you know, the governor and all of these people saying, we're going to cut, or the president, you know, a presidential candidate. We're talking about we're going to cut oil and gas. We're going to cut this. We're going to just be environmental. One of the things in this whole thing that scared me was, and I will say this was on the Republican and the Democratic side, one of the things that scared me the most about watching all of these candidates go back and forth was the fundamental lack of understanding from all of them about what small businesses meant to New Mexico, what minimum wage means to small businesses in New Mexico, about a clear plan to get us out of the hellhole we're in right now. And I'm talking, our hellhole was bad a year ago. Now our hellhole's really bad, right?
But Marcia, you know why? It's because most of them, I feel like, and I heard it numerous times, they just want to bring in private sector, franchises, not local. They want to go outward. And so it's like, yeah, well, it doesn't matter about minimum wage, because if you got a McDonald's, you know, 20, and I don't want that in our town.
No.
It's good to have, but the mom and pops, you know, you can't beat those. You can't beat it. And it's just the best quality you can get for your
and the other piece of it is we need mom and pop industry, and certainly the small businesses are the backbone of our state. We have to support them. We also need all of those people to come in. So one of the big differences in the world between like what I do and like Intel or some of these big ones is what I do is I take the money that all of you in the community have, and I take it in the form of you pay for your hamburgers and your beers, and I recycle it and I spit it back out to you.
Right.
When a company like Intel chooses us, they take the money from all them people in the world, and they then bring it into our community. And now I can pay Intel can pay every one of you more, and you have more money to go spend at my places, and we do that. if we in southern New Mexico, which is, I think we face a different battle here than like Albuquerque or Rio Rancho does, because we're only 40 little miles away from 750 an hour, right? Way over there, just not too far. But you know, we have got to get some of those industries, whether it's small, locally owned, like electronic caregiver, you know, it's locally owned, or whether it's Intel and Tesla or some of these big
Tesla
boys.
would have been something to put
You know,
money in.
we've got to get money from out of the world, out there in the world, into our community. Because I look at it this, we can't really, as New Mexicans, start to look at, here's the social programs we have, here should this, here should that, or that we should spend how many $1 billion on artwork, until every New Mexican has a job. The colonias. Think about what your world down there would be like. So when we were talking and we were debating, and Olga was here, right? What was one of the things that Olga said? Olga said, well, there's not that many businesses in Sunland Park, so the business shutdown doesn't affect us. Okay, honey, that should be totally wrong. You know, you have an amazing labor force. Your labor force in Sunland Park is traveling to El Paso every single day. If we want to bring COVID into this, they are at risk every single day. You are right on the border. You are in a prime location. Why isn't it that we have in those colonias, why aren't we building up those businesses in the colonias? Why would we should have it to where any person in the colonias, there's no reason for them not to have a job. Unless there's a justified reason.
But the people in the colonias do have jobs. They work agribusiness, they work in Santa Teresa, they work in El Paso, you know, so those businesses, what we don't have is the infrastructure and the desire from the community to grow those businesses. But there are new businesses out there for the community, and you see them out there.
Let me clarify, because I sound like a jackass. I don't mean that they're not working. I mean that we don't have businesses in that area that are supplying those jobs, which create the tax base that create the infrastructure. That's what I meant. So please, I sounded like a total.
But even with when the minimum wage was coming up, I was working out there, and the businesses out there, I was at Chopas, they were like, we can't have anyone tell us or regulate us to pay a certain amount of money. We're already paying them more than minimum wage, but we can't, there was much concern about the minimum wage in those rural areas because of family-based, and that they were already, the carnicerias, the bakeries, the little mom and pops.
But we need those businesses that come in that create that gross receipts revenue, that create that tax base, where then those businesses come in, and with them come the infrastructure. With them comes the sewage. I mean, if you look at every single development in Las Cruces, you look at, speaking of Steinborn, let's talk about his daddy. We talk about Sonoma Ranch. The city of Las Cruces didn't pay for those streets. They didn't pay for that septic system. They didn't pay for the sewer. They didn't pay for the water. They didn't pay for that. The developers did.
Maybe you should be a candidate, because we should be talking about candidates, and maybe your ideas are so good that you might want to think of running for the legislature in the future, so you can help make some of this
I think I'm looking at a bunch of candidates, but go ahead, Kelly.
Well, the reason that I brought up to Nathan all the empty buildings is, why doesn't anybody in this community who is on the center or the left go after this issue? There's got to be a reason, And
you know what, when you say that, it just lends itself. Shirley, you work up in Santa Fe. Is there something we're not seeing as voters, as commentators, as people that are we not seeing something that happens in Santa Fe?
You're not seeing the importance of your voice in the committees in person, and because you go with Colonia's Development Day, and you go with a bunch of people, and you see what a difference it makes when they go from office to office and they sit in the committees. I think that people can say, I was just telling Marcy earlier, one of the common themes that I heard through the challengers was eliminate the tax on Social Security. Well, hello, there was 6 bills that were introduced this legislative session in 2020 to eliminate And they all had different little things, and the one that moved along the most was the one that said if you made $25,000 or less in Social Security, you wouldn't have to pay income tax, the dual tax. One said $30,000, you wouldn't have to make it, and then the other ones were just at random. Well, this is an idea that has been forwarded by the think tank, Think New Mexico, for the last couple of years, and it's moving along. It hasn't made it, number one, because there was a lot of conservatives that didn't want it because it would take out $75 to $80 million from the budget. So what are we going to do next year? Probably we won't.
There has to be a deeper reason that so many businesses over the years have closed. I mean, it's like...
I don't think that they, when I see this minimum wage, the strongest advocates against the minimum wage, and they come in bunches, is the Restaurant Association, Carol Wright, and all the restaurants.
What about the fact
people take notice and the legislatures sit there.
What about the fact that you can open a business in one day in El Paso and it takes months and sometimes years to open a business here?
I mean, like, we're not the candidates, and we don't know,
The point
but...
is that if there's a problem with gross receipts, with taxing, with
But we
regulation...
try to get that out of Mr. Small and his candidate. We try to ask him, like, how can you make it easier for a business owner to open up a business? And like I told him, most of my boxing money came from out of state, which is great, so I don't get taxed for it. But the businesses I try to open up here, it was so many hoops to run through. It was. And I was like, dude, I had to get two different, basically counselors, so to speak, the small business branch. They'll help you and walk your hand through it. I had to do it like 3 times, but it was a lot of hoops to jump through.
My personal input quickly, I work in 3 really great places here that have closed down. I worked at Hootenanny's for 9 years.
Who?
Shut down.
Oh, I miss Hootenanny's.
I worked...
That was mixed, right?
At the Meridian, which used to be Chaslin Steakhouse, for years. Shut down. I worked at the Rainforest. Shut down.
Did the owners of any of these places have a common statement about why?
I'll be honest with you. Hootenanny's, it was more of, they had the bar and the liquor store. The liquor store had sold twice to underage people, but it's the same license. So the license had 2 strikes. Their options were to risk getting a 3rd or just selling it before the state takes it. The Meridian, kind of like what you were talking about. This woman I know owned it. She couldn't afford it anymore. An out-of-state person came and bought it, and he shut it down. The Rainforest, unfortunately, was tragic in my opinion. The wife and husband owned it. The husband passed away. And she didn't know what to do with the bar. She kept the hotel open, but the bar. But there's no real help out there for people
who are trying to stay afloat when things like that happen. There's not.
We also, just so you know, New Mexico has twice as many business regulations on the books than Arizona or Texas. We have twice as many. It is very hard to start a business in New Mexico. It is very hard to navigate through a business, especially in probate.
And liquor license.
Liquor license, oh, that's a whole nother story.
Control.
You know, no, we have basically gone to all of our state borders and hung up a sign that said, if you are a business and you want to come to our state to give us jobs, stay the hell out. I mean, and that needs to be solved.
I think what we've created here in this space, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. And again, I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you. Because what I really see happening now is, I think we need to take what we've created, grow this, and bring people together so that we're having a conversation in 2 months from now on how we are going to open up. How do we work with the businesses that want to open up? So when we do that, it's going to take all of our efforts. And whether we're this party or that party, wherever we're coming from, I think it's a time that on some of these issues, we can come together. It's that simple. It's going to be hard work in finding those people. But I look around this table, I look around at all you guys, and I know that where we're at right now, we can do this together. Right now, we've learned that, you know, the governor, and from what I heard talking with other elected officials, the governor didn't get the input from our legislators. I think after this election in November 3rd, we're going to go back to those that we elect and ask them to work with us so that we can bring the resolve, so that we can bring the change. And it may be for economic development, it may be for infrastructure in our colonias, it may be so that we can address some of the issues in our community that we have not addressed, whether it's roads or you know, the parks or a mental health facility. We have to come together, all of us, and it's incumbent upon us to do this work. These elected officials, they can be here for as long as we want them. If I could roll that other little picture, I saw this driving around here in Doña Ana. I was driving by and I seen it a couple of times, but I think it really means something to me. Politicians are temporary. Wu-Tang is forever. Wu-Tang. And I thought that just says it all. For me, walking around our community, driving around, seeing the empty buildings, seeing, you know, folks, you know, struggling with what's going on in this pandemic. I don't believe this pandemic is going to be forever, but we need to come together. With that, I just want to go ahead and give each of you guys about maybe 30, 40 seconds and just go ahead and just, you know, talk to the voters. Go ahead, Mark.
I was all prepared to go to the restroom. So excuse me. I think the most important thing is that if you're home and you're watching us, you're engaged. You want to know. Go out and vote. If you haven't voted already, make sure you vote. Make sure your voice is heard. Because you know what? Next Tuesday, at the end of next Tuesday, that's all we get. So make sure your voice is heard. Make sure your voice is counted. If you didn't already vote, absentee, in person, whatever, get out and vote. Because no matter what happens to us in the future, if the majority of New Mexicans have expressed themselves in their vote, then guess what? Everybody else has to live with it. But get out, show your voice. Don't be angry from home. Don't be happy from home. Go out and vote and get your vote done. Thank you.
Ciao.
Listen, first and foremost, I have to tell y'all it's going to be cold tonight. Bring your pets in, please. Don't leave them out. Don't let them freeze out there. It's going to snow tonight and possibly tomorrow. So that's my public service announcement. If you watch the series, you've probably seen that a lot of these candidates, they looked really good on paper. The websites sounded really good. But then when you got to talk to them face to face, a lot of them weren't ready for the job. They didn't, in my opinion, deserve the job. So if you didn't like any of the candidates that you have, and please still do your research, go and vote. But if you didn't like the candidates, I think it's time to start working on building up your own candidate. Because that's also an option that we have as citizens. We can make our own candidate that really represents us, and we can get him or her into office. And that is definitely an option, and probably the best option in my opinion. A little too late for that. So go out and vote for the best candidate. And I hate to say it's the lesser of two evils. No, go vote for the best candidate for today and start raising the absolute best candidate for tomorrow.
Shirley.
Oh, thank you.
30 seconds. 30
Okay,
seconds.
at the end of each show, Arturo, you always say, vote to live to vote and vote to live. And I think that's true, and I think all of us have kind of reflected that here. I'm hoping from what I've heard that you will run for office, some of you, because you do come with some good ideas. And yes, we have too many regulations, but get out there and change it. Don't just gripe and complain and whine. As of today, I called the county clerk's office. As of today at 4:00 p.m., we had twice what we had in 2016. Absentee ballots, 21,500. Early votes, 27,000. for a total of 48,200 votes. Already
Wow.
passed.
Go ahead, Dio.
Wow. So, for those of you that want to be partisan, 25,300 Democrats, 1,800 Republicans, 7,800 declined to state, and 300 Libertarians. Regardless of what your party is, you have today through Saturday to vote. Saturday at the satellite centers from 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and then nothing Monday, Sunday and Monday, and then Tuesday all day long. So no excuse. Vote, vote, vote.
All right, Kelly.
All right, so thank you very much, Shirley. I would just like to remind you of the website that I mentioned. Go and look and see if we are being taken advantage of and whether or not the numbers really add up to what they were supposed to be. The doctors in Scott Atlas and the efficacy of lockdown, social distancing, and closing. Just look up Scott Atlas. But I do appreciate Arturo putting this together, and beyond any commitment that you have to Democrat or Republican, the voting process is important, but educate yourself before you vote and figure out what your issues are, and you can't go wrong. Thank you.
Sunset, Sunset, I want to give you, close it out, and then I'll wrap it up.
Oh, well, thank you. I just want to say it doesn't matter who you vote for. The most important thing is that you vote. Just always remember our local vote is more important than our national vote. And love each other, love your neighbors, respect each other, and tune in next time.
Love your enemies, too.
That's oh.
I want to go ahead and just sit there and say thank you to the viewing audience. Thank you for your participation. When we started this, I wasn't sure what to expect, but I do feel because of your participation, because of what we've done, it's been an incredible learning experience, and this is just another tool for the way we do civic engagement in our community. So thank you. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Mesilla Valley Transportation, Southwest Organizing Project, and the Las Cruces channel. Today I would really like to say thank you to the game for giving us the food and catering our event for this after party. Remember, vote to live, live to vote. Get out and vote. Have a good night, and thank you.
I can't help but think of the finest trucking company in the U.S. They provide a driver experience like no other. From regional routes to great pay, they make it a priority to make sure you feel right at home. As a truck driver, there are several companies to choose from, but I decided to drive with MVT, where they have state-of-the-art equipment and the best trucks in the industry, so you arrive at your destination safely and in style. I truly love what I do. After all, I'm proud to be with MVT.
Join the Mesilla Valley Transportation family.